RotoGrinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderEd, Blender HD. If you want to follow me there on Twitter, and it's Monday, so you know what we do on Mondays. We bring in James McCool for Mondays with McCool. James McCool, the co-author with me of The Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass that you can pick up at theoryofdfs.com. And as always, in the YouTube chat, I see you guys there. Give me those thumbs ups on your way in the door. Matt Mears, Hog Lawrence, David Calnis, Doug Montgomery, Turk 570, Card Fan, David Calnis. It says the wonder GPP with Jalen Guyton, Cole Beasley, and Brandon Cooks yesterday. What a time to be alive. Well, I'm glad you won because I didn't, right? I didn't win in GPPs. I did great in cash. I made money yesterday. I upped my cash volume a bit on DraftKings yesterday, James. When I saw that a lot of people were going to play Jamison Crowder. I thought that was a sensible move. When I saw that Jamison Crowder was going to be popular, I added some triple ups. I played more head-to-heads. I won 95% of my head-to-heads. Yeah. 95 point something, whatever, of my head-to-heads. And this is how I determine like whether or not I'm going to play cash. I like playing cash on weeks that are either prove it weeks, like weeks where like the lineup like is essentially so obvious. Like maybe there are only two lineups. It's like either you did this or you did that, and that's it. And anyone that did anything differently than that is suboptimal. Or on slates where I believe my cash lineup has a significant edge over what popular lineups are going to be. Doesn't mean I'm playing like an extremely contrarian lineup. Just that a certain construction, like people are going to do this a lot more than they should, but they really should be doing that, and I'm going to be doing that. So that's what I did yesterday. I did essentially when I saw that Jamison Crowder did have a decent projection median wise, and I saw around the industry that he was fitting into cash lineups in order to get Eckler in there. Mm-hmm. And I thought with the running backs that we had, so like my cash lineup, just to go over this for a second before we get to you. I know you didn't even say anything, James. Hi, how you doing?
Hello.
Right. So my cash lineup was Hill, Jacobs, Gibson, Godwin, Renfro, Williams, O'Shaughnessy, Fournette, and the Browns. Yeah. 157 points. All I did was the way that I play cash games typically is that given the difference of less than 1 point of projection, I'd like to add more certainty to my lineup. So I'm going to side always with what I'm more certain with in cash games. In GPPs, I want to take the under. I want to embrace the variance. So like in my aggregate, for instance, James, look, I'm going to press optimize and look at the lineup that comes up in my aggregate projections. Okay, Crowder, yeah. Williams, Godwin, Hooper, Eckler, Browns. Like this was the most popular lineup in cash games.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Right. So it's a 150.69. It gets you three good running back. I mean, I think Jacobs and Gibson I was not going to play them. Sure. Mike Williams was going to be stuck in there. Taysom Hill was going to be stuck in there. Like there's no way I'm not playing like these guys. Everything else is up to interpretation.
I think Godwin was like the cash play yesterday too, but you're sure. True,
but I mean, if you didn't need a 7K receiver, maybe you were going down, right? I could see a build, maybe possibly not with Godwin.
Sure.
Okay, so now that I lock these guys in, okay, I'm not playing Crowder. Essentially, I'm building a lineup that does not have Jamison Crowder getting the ball from Zach Wilson.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I try to avoid in cash, especially receivers from bad teams. Yeah. The wide receiver position in cash games has the highest opportunity cost because the range of outcomes of wide receivers is wide enough that if you bomb at wide receiver, you're essentially cratering your entire cash line. You really do not want to take a snowflake in wide receiver if you could avoid it. No. So I don't like playing guys like Crowder. I like playing guys like Brandon Cooks, who tends to project well in cash games, or Amon-Ra St. Brown, or whatever Lions receiver du jour, or like a Curtis Samuel when he projects, like those types of guys. I don't want to take Jalen Guyton. Of course, he's out plays for a better team, but who knows with that situation? I would have actually been more up to play Jalen Guyton than to play Jameson Crowder because Guyton was $1,300 cheaper.
I would agree.
Right. So I do this. So I like this is simply my process. I'm showing it to you. So it's like there are non-questionable guys in here. So I'm like, I'm going to be playing these 4 guys. Okay. So I take out Crowder. So I just X him out. And then I run it again. Right. I run it again. I get Renfroe. There's nothing more certain in my life, especially with Waller out, than Renfroe getting targets.
I guess, man.
Right. So I look at this lineup and I go, okay. I get Elliott with no Pollard in. He's still beat up. Yeah. And then I get the Detroit tight end. And I go, do I really want? I mean, I know tight end is, but there's a lot of cheaper tight ends. There was O'Shaughnessy, there's Cook, there's Hooper.
Tight end was stacked this week.
What?
Tight end was stacked this week. We had a lot of options in every single price range that you could play tight end.
Right, that were viable. That I shouldn't be anchored to one. So like, with Hockenson out, who knows what the role of like it's the number one, it's the crappiest offense on the entire slate.
Yep.
And it's a punt tight end that who knows what the hell's gonna happen. So it's like, can I avoid playing right? So I take out right, I X him out, and then I run it again. Okay. So now I get Beasley, Renfroe, Williams, Hooper, Eckler, Seahawks. I get something like this. And I go, do I really want to play Beasley?
The better question here is, do you want to play 2 Cole Beasleys with both Beasley and Renfroe?
Right. But the main thing to me is that I see Eckler here and I go at 8,300. Like, I don't mind Zeke and I don't mind Fournette. And they're cheaper than Eckler. And I could upgrade something here possibly. So like, is Eckler a necessity? Is Hooper a necessity? I knew Hooper was going to be popular at tight end, but what makes him any different than some of the other tight ends? So I'm like, do I really need Eckler? Because I don't mind this lineup, but I really would rather not have Beasley in here. Yeah. Right. I mean, I don't mind Beasley, but I mean, I'd rather get Godwin. Look, I have no Tampa Bay players, and that game is going to have like the most amount of plays. So it's like, I kind of want to have a Tampa Bay player at least. So like, do I need Eckler? So I'm going to take out Eckler, run it again, and then I get Metcalf, Jared Cook. I get Elliott in here. And I go, I still don't have a Tampa Bay player. Right. So I look through and go, I'm not playing Metcalf in cash games. So I take him out. And here you go. And here's the lineup right before the lineup that I played. This is the lineup that I was going to play. Hill, everyone with Renfroe, Williams, Godwin, O'Shaughnessy, Browns defense. But I have Ezekiel Elliott here. And I have 100 of salary remaining. So I'm like, do I play Elliott at 7,300, even though in my aggregate, he projects 0.8 higher than Leonard Fournette. Mm-hmm. But Leonard Fournette, I'm certain about. Elliott could have 90% of the work. He also could, Corey Clement could come in and just play the Pollard role. I mean, it's Zeke Elliott. I have no idea. Fournette, like Bernard, is like not even playing anymore.
No.
And I'd rather just have more Buccaneers. So it's just like, okay, so if I'm not playing Elliott there, I just plug in Fournette and good to go. I have 2 Bucs players, which is what I wanted. I don't care about my tight end. So great, O'Shaughnessy. But I know what I'm getting out of O'Shaughnessy more than I'm getting, out of Wright. I'd rather have Cook. I'd rather have Cooper. But I don't need the Seahawks defense. I don't mind the Browns defense. So, like, if anyone's looking for like a cash game process outside of just, if you just ran the optimal of whatever projections you have, that you're getting a competitive lineup. Like I said before, the lineup that I ran with my aggregate was literally the most popular lineup in cash games, and it did, and I still think it cashed.
Yeah, I still did well.
My lineup came up like 25 points higher, but like, just avoiding Jamison Crowder. But I knew that. See, the thing is that when I clicked optimize, let me include everyone back in. Like, I knew, like, when I see that my aggregate matches the most consensus across the industry type of cash lineup, like, I know that if I wanted to play this lineup, I would be fine. Like this would be a line where I'm like, I'm comfortable with my cash volume. But being that I'm like, I don't think I'm looking at this going, how do I not play Renfro at 6,100 on this slate? Like even if I just plug Renfro in and just say, give me the best lineup with Renfro. Right? I go like that and run it. Right? I pretty much get I pretty much get the lineup I had, but it's Elliott, Wright, Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then it's like, do I want to play Wright? Well, I could go from Wright to O'Shaughnessy, and I could go Seahawks down to the Browns. It's like, okay, I like that better. And then I have Elliott and $100 remaining. I'm like, do I want to play Elliott or Fournette? And then like, bingo, there you go. I mean, just simply like I'm prioritizing Renfro over Crowder. And then there you go. And once I saw that in the morning, or even like late Saturday night, I'm like, I want to take advantage of all these Crowder teams. I'm not like, truthfully, I'm not even scared of Crowder. Like, oh, well, what happens if Crowder gets 15? I'm still not scared. Like, I don't see Crowder getting 30 points.
Oh, absolutely not.
So it's like, I'm not even scared of even not having it. But I know that he's going to be like 40% owned, 50% owned in cash games. So Sunday morning, I just started, I added more head-to-heads, triple ups. I entered all the double ups that were remaining by lock, between like noon and 1, like before lock, the latecomers. And I just bombarded it. And a good thing I did because my GPP lineups didn't do very well. But I ended up making a little bit of money at the end of the day just by doing that, because the lineup differences projection wise in all those iterations was 1.5 points between them all. So it's like, why am I playing Crowder?
Yeah,
I ended up playing Crowder in GPP. He ended up in a couple of my lineups because he just fit. But yeah, so that just wanted to highlight the cash process. You're perfectly fine playing any of the lineups that I showed, right? Like any of them would have been fine. And I think any of them would have cashed in double ups. Pretty much, right? Other than the Metcalf one, probably that wasn't necessarily the greatest of lineups.
Wasn't great.
Right. But I mean, all the combinations, everyone got there enough that you should have still done well in most double ups and still would have won more than half of your head-to-heads. Maybe you broke even on the day or something. But in GPP, I could already tell that you also had a bad day in GPP because when I looked up the power sweep, I couldn't even find you. All right. The results DB, you're not even there. And if you look up me, I'm not even there.
Yeah.
The highlight, the overall way to sum up my GPP this week was I was hoodwinked. So what did you do in GP? I'll explain why I was hoodwinked, but what were your thoughts and what did you do in GPP?
I want to lead off with this saying as I only had one player who had a fire. I had one player who was on fire, and that was Josh Allen out of 3 lineups. So I played a Buffalo stack, I played a Kansas City stack, and I played a Cowboy stack. Now, if you didn't even look at the actual results of the slate, you probably think that I did okay.
Well, if you looked at the scores of those teams,
you
would think that you did well, but didn't realize that the Cowboys mostly got there on defensive plays. The Chiefs got it. Now, if you told me that you had Mahomes with 3 of his running backs, then and you stacked him with that, like that would have been fine. And the defense, right? If you played the good old defensive double running back stack for the
quadruple dip.
Right, quadruple dip, or if you just played naked Josh Allen, because maybe Gabe Davis, you paired him with just Gabe Davis and maybe
Dawson Knox, Gabe Davis,
or Dawson, right, but not Diggs because Diggs got points, but like none of his receivers really got there, right? And the Cowboys, like they didn't. I mean, Cooper was fine,
yes.
But the team, if you just looked at the score, you would think that you took it down, right? If I told you that Chiefs put up 48 points, you'd be like, well, how do I not win?
I also will again back up. So not only if you looked at the scores just like ad hoc and had no idea about like who scored the touchdowns, and I told you that I stacked those teams and I only used one-offs and second correlations from those games.
All right.
That would have like you think that I'm rolling in dough.
Right, Tyreek Hill 40 burger. Where is
Oh
it?
yeah, no, you think Tyreek Hill, you think Travis Kelce, Foster Moreau still underpriced. Like you think that he probably would have had some targets in this game? No, absolutely not. I got trashed. The best score that I had was 110, and 42 of those points came from Josh Allen. So I played good teams and they scored a lot of points, but like none of my guys did anything. So life is hard, man. I do think I just wanted to piggyback on the cash game conversation. I do think that it was all you had to do this week was prioritize Hunter Renfrow over Jameson Crowder. That's it. That's all you had to do. I liked Leonard Fournette as well, but I think that there were like 4 plays that were just obvious, right? Taysom Hill, Antonio Gibson, Mike Williams, and
Josh Jacobs.
Chris Godwin, I think, over Josh Jacobs. I think he could have gotten away from Josh Jacobs because I personally think Jeff Wilson Jr. was a really good play in cash games at the very least.
On FanDuel, maybe. It's a roster that you didn't want to take up the roster spot.
I don't know. I think with 19 carries in his last game and on the best.
Yeah, no Debo. You have to factor in Debo.
Sure. Anyway, I think there are like 4 plays that were very obvious, and then you did have to make that kind of decision of Hunter Renfrow or Jameson Crowder, and that kind of decided where you could go with your flex spot. Tight end was just kind of there are like 10 tight ends you could use, but I do think that this week the decision was Hunter Renfrow versus Jameson Crowder. In GPPs though, this is just another week where like last week, I just knew like after the slate, it's like I wouldn't have done this differently. I liked the stacks that I had. I liked the games that I attacked. I liked the way that I put together the lineups and the way that I was gaining leverage within the lineups. Like my Buffalo stack was Josh Allen, Cole Beasley, and Emmanuel Sanders. I faded Diggs in that one so that I could have Tyreek Hill and Mike Evans. Like I thought the way that I built things was good. And then at the end of the slate, it's like, all right, well, Hunter Renfrow had 150 yards and a touchdown, and like every running back that I use is terrible. So it is what it is. This week, do you think this week came down to running backs? Because that's what it feels like to me.
Well, no, and I did the opposite. The two things that I don't think I did anything wrong. It's just that my overall strategy was that if we take a look at, for instance, this is what I look at. So salary adjusted value of running backs comparable to the rest to the field was higher. So we have Gibson, Eckler, Jacobs, Elliott, Fournette that are like over 2. And then like the guys that are down here, like the Melvin Gordons and the Deonta Foremans who got there, right? Joe Mixon are like the difference is more like there's like a 3, 4, 5 to 6, 7 point difference between these running backs. But at wide receiver, like the top one was Mike Williams at 2.5. So the difference between even Chris Godwin at 1.83 and CeeDee Lamb was only 4 points. Like there's less difference between the wide receivers than there are with the running backs. So when I see this, I know that the wide receiver ownership is going to end up being more condensed. Like these guys shouldn't be that more drastically owned than like, there's no reason why Mike Williams and DJ Moore should be 2-1 in ownership.
Sure.
Based on only 2 points in projection. Right. Sure. So because of that, I was inclined to play more different wide receivers and then stick it to the top level of running back, which means my running back pool was essentially Gibson, Eckler, Jacobs, Elliott, Fournette, Wilson Jr. That was it.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Right. Now I could have Javonte Williams, I thought was overowned for Gordon being back.
Oh, that was silly. Yeah.
Right.
He got there on 2 touchdowns, but it was silly the ownership that he was getting.
Right. And I thought Kamara would be overowned against the Jets, and he was. Right. If I take a look at the ownership, 25%. So given the choice, I'm only playing 18 lineups. So like if I had 150, I probably have some of these guys. But so I'm like, I removed Kamara. Wilson Jr., I don't even like, but he's there as salary relief because I don't have any cheap, really, really cheap running backs.
Yeah.
So if in the lineups that I need a cheap, running back type of thing, I got Jeff Wilson Jr.
It was either you go Jeff Wilson Jr. or you take a shot on one of the Detroit running backs.
I didn't want to do that.
Which you were going to get wrong anyway because they used Craig, whatever his last
Reynolds,
name.
right? He came in, right? Or getting the Tennessee running backs right. I was just going to avoid that situation. I don't need to.
Or the Jets.
So I'm building lineups, and I stuck basically the stacks that I played were Buffalo, Tampa Bay, the Chargers. I played one Kansas City stack. I played two Russell Wilsons. I think that's it. And Dak. And my number one was Dallas. And that's where I got hoodwinked. James.
Did you?
In the Wildcat. So like I'm comparing the Wildcat to the Millie to the play action.
Yeah.
They were even more owned. I didn't even see this. They were even Cooper and Lamb were two of the higher owned wide receivers. I had them projected. I thought they would be 8 to 10% owned. CeeDee Lamb in the Millie was 18%. Cooper was 14%. It turns out that Zeke was the low owned one.
Tragic.
So Zeke was more owned in the Wildcat and less owned in the Millie and play action. But I mean, still Lamb and Cooper still got good ownership in the Wildcat. They just got more in the Millie. Now, obviously, I'm not gearing my play towards the Millie. But still, if you would have told me that CeeDee Lamb was 15 and Cooper was 13, I would have just played more Elliott.
I had both of them at 9.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Right, I figured they were in that range. So that's why they were coming up so much for me. And then I had Diggs as over-owned. And Diggs came in 16% in the Wildcat. So, yes, that's true. I thought he was over-owned. And I played more Beasley and Sanders. And Sanders came in at 4. And Beasley came in at 12 in the Wildcat. So a little bit higher than I thought. So I was playing more Allen plus Beasley. I was playing a lot of Allen single stacks. So like Allen plus Beasley plus Godwin.
Sure.
Or plus Evans or plus Fournette or whoever. Because he could get there with his legs. So I don't
do that with Josh Allen as well. Him and Lamar
Jackson. Right. Brady, I was double stacking. So I had Godwin, Evans, Godwin, Gronkowski, Evans, Gronkowski. I had Brady, Fournette, Godwin. I had lineups like that. So like I was fine there. But the main thing is that I out of 18 lineups, I think I had 6, 7 Lamb lineups. So it's like I had like 3 Dak stacks, but I also had CeeDee Lamb as a one-off in like 4 other lineups. I had Cooper as a one-off. And had I known that the ownership would be much higher than I expected, I wouldn't have had him as a one-off. I ended up making sure to not play Renfro as a one-off because I thought Renfro would be 20% owned. I thought Renfro would be the second highest owned wide receiver on the slate. I thought Williams would be number 1 and Renfro would be number 2. So that's why I'm like, okay, I'm not going to play Renfro only in my Kansas City stat. So I'm like, okay, I'm getting rid of. That's why I had Renfro in cash, no Renfro in GPPs, and he's the second highest scorer on the slate. And then I played like 6 Metcalf lineups and 2 Lockett lineups. That was reversed. That would have been better. And had I known the ownership on the Bengals receivers was as low as they are, I had them as one-offs. But I did not play Burrow. But had I known that the ownership on the Bengals 49ers game was going to be that low,
yeah,
I would have played more Burrow, Higgins, Chase, Kittle lineups, or at least with Jeff Wilson, right? I played a lot. My Higgins and Chase lineups with the one-offs were mostly secondary correlations.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, but it was a secondary correlation with Jeff Wilson. So what did that do for me? Not much.
You should have played the running back 1 on San Francisco.
Oh, Debo. Yeah, but he only got 12 points anyway, so it didn't even matter, right?
It's so tilting, man. It's so tilting. I'm
going through all this to show like I'm judging, like just to show you, I'm not judging based on the results. I'm judging based on, did I make the decisions versus the ownership that I was intending on making?
Mhm.
And had I known this information, had I not under projected the Cowboys ownership, like I wouldn't, I may not have even played Cowboy stacks at all. I may have just played Elliott. I would have played more Elliott. It still would have gotten me into trouble, right? 9 points. I wouldn't have got there anywhere, but that's not the point that I'm making.
Yeah.
Right. Godwin, I mean, really, Godwin came in at like 17% ownership. He was fairly lower. The fact that Crowder was 15% owned in GPP, I could just throw those lineups out. Why? I mean, there was just no one in that range. He projected better than anyone else in that range. So he ended up as a one-off in a bunch of my lineups. And I second thought, I should have just X'd him out.
Yeah.
Because I'm not playing that game. Because the whole point is that I wasn't playing Kamara and I wasn't playing Taysom Hill in GPP. So why the hell am I playing Jameson Crowder at all?
Right.
Let's get rid of that. I played some Barkley. Like I had a lot of Barkley. Jared Cook was my like one-off tight end in a lot of lineups. So I played like Barkley Cook.
Yeah.
Like that secondary correlation. But like there's no way I get there. I mean, I had Lockett in lineups. I had Chase and Higgins in lineups. I even had Landry as a one-off more than the field. But when you have Gibson and Jacobs in most of your lineups.
Yeah, I mean, with me, I had Gibson and Jeff Wilson most of my lineups, and nothing else matters at that point. Even if you pick the best stacks, like those lineups just failed. And I also want to like, because there are a lot of people that are like, oh, well, I got fooled by Antonio Gibson usage. I got fooled by Antonio Gibson projected as a $7,500 running back everywhere that you looked in the industry. I mean, it wasn't even a question. Like for him to only be 50% owned, I think was still even a little bit under owned.
The Washington offense was just inept. It was
nothing.
The Washington just collapsed. I mean, The whole team, like you could say the same thing for the Raiders outside of Renfro. Like Jacobs, Jacobs only got 11. It's like, well, based on his target share and carry share, he should have been a 70. He should have been a 7. You're going to disagree that he should have been a $7,500 running back. I
think he should have been like 7K.
Okay,
which underpriced. I did like Josh Jacobs. I liked him quite a bit. I think Antonio Gibson was just like a ridiculously good play. I had Leonard Fournette as the top overall projected running back on the slate, so I agree with you.
You had him over Eckler?
By 1 point.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, the Chargers the Chargers are a hard team to project because they don't really want to run the ball. But Allen's
targets have to go. Allen's ADOT has to go somewhere.
I had Austin Eckler as the third highest projected running back on the slate. Like it's not like I had him projected badly by any means.
You didn't have him getting a higher target share because of Allen's root tree?
Slightly higher, but like with the way that my model works, the Chargers were like 10-point favorites. So I had to have expected that they are going to run a little bit more in the second half. Like we've seen them pull off the gas. We saw them pull off the gas last week. So as much as like Austin Eckler still projected well, him and Alvin Kamara, like these guys still projected well. Leonard Fournette in that spot with Tampa Bay, where Tampa Bay are slight favorites, but Fournette has been a legit 20-20 market share guy in terms of receiving yards. And he's been a 70-70 guy in terms of rushing yards. That there was nobody that was going to touch him as like the second highest team total on the slate for the way that I build out my models. So
from a sentiment perspective, I think he has one of the highest ceilings on the slate because of the game environment. I mean, that's why that's the reason why I sided with Fournette in cash.
Yeah.
It's just dude, this guy's almost always on the field, and this game is going to have like 20 more plays in it than any other game. And it went to overtime also.
It had a over under 5 points higher than any other game on the slate. And then it had a 6 point higher over under because there was that one game for Pittsburgh and Minnesota that took place on Thursday that was not on the slate. So It had basically a touchdown over every other game. That I had a Tampa Bay player and a Buffalo player in every single one of the lineups that I built. Like I wanted to have a lot of exposure to that game, and it was a good game. It was a good game, But Josh Allen just did it all himself. So it was an interesting week. I do think that Josh Jacobs was underpriced. I thought Rashad Penny was underpriced.
Talk about tilting with that. I mean, how the Seattle backfield? What are you going to do? I mean,
it's weird. I agree. I mean, and if he did not do well, we'd be talking about like me having him as the weird projection of the week because I had him at 13.
Hold on, you had him at 13? Let me take a look at this. You had him 13. Okay, my aggregate is 8.2, so that's not ridiculous, but that's still. I mean, that in comparison to 8, that's like a what?
Sure. Well,
that's like a 60% high, 70% higher projection.
It's the same thing as Zay Jones' projection last week, where like he was projected at 8 in your aggregate, but he was projected at like 12.5 in mine. And it's like, okay, that's not an obscene difference, but it's so
notable. What were you projecting for all the other running backs? Like what were you giving Alex Collins?
Let's see.
Because they had 4 running backs active: Collins, Penny, Dallas, and Homer.
Yeah, so I had Alex Collins at 8, Rashad Penny at 13, and DJ Dallas at 5.
So much higher. So you think that just Seattle was just going to essentially just run the ball 58 times? I mean, like how the hell do you get to that?
Not 58 times. Hold on. Let me get.
It seems like the way high medians for all these guys. Unless you think Seattle's going to run the ball 90% of the time.
It's because I gave Rashad Penny Travis Homer's receiving work.
Okay. And
then I had him at a 30% of the rushing yards, 40% of the rushing touchdowns, 12% of the receiving yards.
Okay.
So that's
seems like the combination is too high. I'm like Seattle runs the least amount of plays in the league and they run the ball at the highest rate, but I'm just like
they were big favorites. They're big favorites.
Yeah, I guess so. You're right. 10, I guess so. I get it.
That's how it happens. Like, and also, frankly, Alex Collins has been terrible. Like my model doesn't just say like, here's the market share and then give like an arbitrary yards per carry. Like he's been bad. Rashad Penny has been notably better with the work that he's gotten. And there were a lot of people that I saw talking about Rashad Penny as like being the guy. So I was fine taking a little bit of a leap of faith on that, but I didn't play him. I played Jeff Wilson Jr., who was like the same price.
Right. Was 400 cheaper.
Yeah. And projected better in the aggregates.
But did you have Rashad Penny project higher than Wilson in your model?
I don't think so. I had Jeff Wilson higher.
So you had Penny at 13. Then what did you have Wilson at? Because I had Wilson at 12.
They were close. I had Jeff Wilson at 12. I had Rashad Penny at 13. So I should have had Rashad Penny.
Oh, and because Wilson is 400 cheaper, he ends up in your line.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was the way that it fit. Because since I was playing such expensive stacks, I needed as much salary savings as I could get.
Right. But from an ownership perspective, if Jeff Wilson Jr., I mean, take a look at this ownership gap.
Oh yeah, it's massive.
Wilson in the Wildcat, just in the Millie was 18% owned, and Penny was 2%. So like the difference of 1 point of projection shouldn't that easy. Right. Just that obviously I had Penny at 8. And I had 4 running backs in Seattle. Like I'm just, it's like the Detroit. If I was going to play anyone in Detroit, it probably would have been Godwin Igwebuike because he could catch balls out of the backfield.
I would have played Jamar Jefferson, but I had them projected the same.
Right, but I'm saying like, what do you? Either you take a shot or you just avoid. And I'm not. Well, to me, the running back position. I mean, obviously, if you did it the other way, if you just played contrarian running back and you played chalk, if you played the chalk wide receiver combination, you pretty much could have done well with just like I'm going to play Deonta Foreman, Rashad Penny, and like if you just would have gotten that, you would have been fine. But I mean, I projections would have told you not to do it. That no, it was a weird worst projected lineups doing that.
It was a weird week, and like we talked about at the beginning with these weird running back situations where Detroit, just take a guess. The Jets, just take a guess, man. The Titans, just take a guess. I don't know. With the Titans, who knows?
The 49ers, take a guess.
Well, with 49ers,
with Debo there and Hasty there, who knows?
I mean, Debo that's an annoying part of it. But like last time, Jeff Wilson Jr. got 19 carries, 4,400 for 19 carries. You can even look in the ownership across the lineups. Like in the higher dollar contests, he was higher owned. He was a good play. I'm going to stand and die on that hill.
I'm not saying that he wasn't. I'm just saying in general that there's more uncertainty in that situation with Debo back. But even, the Kansas City backfield.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 2 touchdowns, man. Darrell Henderson.
And Darrell Williams had a touchdown, and Gore had, they scored 4 touchdowns on the ground.
I hate when that happens. That happened to me with Tampa Bay stacks a couple weeks ago with Lenny Fournette.
We have Fournette with the 4 touchdowns, and Brady sitting there with 12 points.
Yeah, tilting. But it was a hard week. I think that it was a hard week in terms of lacking value. I was very tempted to use 2 tight end lineup with my Kansas City stack. I was considering doing Foster Moreau and Travis Kelce. I ended up not needing to do it.
What projection? You keep on talking about Moreau. What was your projection on Moreau?
I don't know, like 9 points or something.
Oh, okay. That
wasn't great, but I thought that he was going to be way under owned. Like,
right, for forecast, like comparison to some of these other tight ends in that range, like why not? Like the fact that Hooper was so much higher owned than all these other tight ends, like that didn't make any sense. I mean, if I take a look here, just the tight end position, like Hooper, obviously in the Millie, actually it was much more spread out.
Yeah.
But in higher stakes, Hooper was, in the Wildcat was 23% owned.
Yeah, he was 20% owned in the power sweep. He was high owned. And like, I get it. I understand why he was high owned. He projected fine for me. It wasn't like the worst projection I've ever seen. He was 3,400. I get it. But James O'Shaughnessy is right there. Evan Ingram's right there. Gerald Everett's right there. Foster Moreau. Hell, Juwan Johnson.
Ricky Seals-Jones.
Yeah.
You could have played him.
Any of these guys. I mentioned it on my stream that tight end was just stacked. There was no, you could have played any tight end. Well, not any tight end, obviously, but you could have played in any price range. You could have had a tight end that projected well. Like if you wanted to pay up, you could have played Mark Andrews, George Kittle, or Travis Kelce. If you wanted to pay the mid-range, sure, go ahead and play Rob Gronkowski or Dawson Knox. If you wanted to play cheap, sure, play Hooper, play O'Shaughnessy, play Gerald. Like, tight end was a non-factor for me this week.
Well, no, it was a big factor. The 2 of the top 5 scorers were tight ends. Kittle and if you play double tight end, Kittle, Andrews. Imagine the people that played. How about the people that played Lamar, Bateman, Andrews lineups? Looking at their lineups, going, "Oh my God, Bateman 20, whatever, and Andrews with what, and then Lamar with 1 point."
Just tragic.
Was in.
I liked Baltimore last or yesterday too. I ended up not playing them because I already had Josh Allen and I needed to play a cheaper stack. That's why I played Dallas. Just because and you know, kind of like looking back at it, hindsight 2020, you mentioned how they were all higher owned than what we projected. Because both you and I, we're usually about the same on ownership projections. And they came in about twice as owned as I thought they were going to come in on the wide receivers. And like looking back at it, yeah, sure. It's because they were like the team with the 4th or 5th highest team total on the slate. And they were cheap. I mean, Dak was affordable. Cooper was affordable. Gallup was affordable. Like these guys were affordable for sure as a stack. And that was a game where you would have expected it to be a little bit more competitive. Obviously, it was not. But yeah, it makes sense looking back at it.
Well, everyone looked at the same thing. That's the point. That's what I said. I was hoodwinked. It's we weren't hoodwinked. It's like if you were to judge this, and this is what I suggest for lower stakes players or play. You know, if you're not playing, and why do I have to look at the Wildcat ownership or the power sweep? I'm only playing, $12 single entry. I'm only playing the play action. It's like, no, you're making your decisions based on that. But like, as far as like who was higher owned in the higher stakes, typically points to the constructions that, are more plus EV, right? Are higher expected value. So like across the board, if I take a look at the people that I had in my GPP lineups, and I go, and I'm looking at, especially in Results DB, which is free. So you can go to rotogrinders.com/resultsdb and look this up and compare ownership to any contest you want on any slate. And I take a look and I go, okay, well, I played more Gibson and Wilson. It's like these, when the green is higher, the green is on the Wildcat side and yellow is down here. That means more higher stakes players played these players.
Yeah. And
higher stakes typically have more sharper players in them. So I go, okay, let me take a look at let me take a look at the running backs that I played. It's like, well, I went Over on Gibson. Okay. Well, that checks. I went under on Kamara, right? Under on Williams. It's like, okay, that checks. I didn't care that much about Eckler, so it's whatever. So it's like, okay, even. Okay, that checks. I went over on Wilson. I went over on Jacobs. I went over on Fournette. I went over on Barkley. I went over on Zeke. It all checks, right? All of these are green, and the ones that I didn't play are all in yellow, which checks in the Wildcat. And then I go to wide receiver, and I go, okay, I was met on Mike Williams. Like, I was under on Mike Williams, but I get it. I thought he was efficient at where he was. So like, that's fine. I was over on Lamb, but I mean, I was over only because I thought it was going to be lower than this. So like so much of the field went there anyway. Then I take a look at, like, I was under on Guyton, over on Godwin. I was under. I didn't play Julio Jones. I
was very tempted, but like, who am I going to play back with? Somebody on the Jags? Couldn't be me.
Right. But I was over on Metcalf, over on Chase, over on Beasley. I had some DJ Moore. I was over on Landry, but barely, right, over here. I had some Lockett, right? Sanders, Higgins. I had more Higgins than 4%. Right. So I just go, I had Brandon Cooks in my lineups, but Brandon Cooks was across from Lockett or Metcalf. Right, because it was the Seattle guy. I didn't play Cooks as a one-off. So I look at this and I look at just the general lineup constructions. Here's the quarterbacks, right? I faded Hill completely.
So did I.
Right? Josh Allen. I was way over on Josh Allen and Tom Brady. I mean, like, I just take a look at these ownerships in comparison to one another and go, well, I made more of the choices that more of the sharper players made anyway. And it's likely that the Cowboys came in at higher ownership because that's what everyone else saw also. I mean, like that's what in the power sweep you go, I open up my lineups and I go, why is CeeDee Lamb 18% owned? Uh-oh. Oops. I go, how did that happen? He's twice as owned as I thought he was going to be at 7,200. And then I see T. Higgins at like 4%. And I go, I thought that would almost be reversed.
Yeah.
Right. I thought Higgins would be like 16 and Lamb would be 8. Right. Something like that. And I go, oh, I should have done the opposite. Oh, but I think, because people are looking at, they're trying to project what everyone else is trying to do. And everyone's looking, going, yeah, no one's playing the Cowboys. I'm going to play the Cowboys. People are playing too much of these Bengals receivers. I'm going to fade them. And they're like, and then it goes the other way. Then it's just like, you got to go to that third level. So I got hoodwinked. I don't think it would have mattered because I still would have played the same running backs and gotten killed.
Yeah, I wouldn't have gotten. I would not have done a single thing differently. I would have done one thing differently, and I went back and forth on it a lot. Where I had on my Dallas stack. So my Dallas stack was Dak Prescott, Mark Cooper, Michael Gallup with Terry McLaurin. My secondary stack was Rob Gronkowski and Emmanuel Sanders. My running backs were Jeff Wilson Jr. and Cordell Patterson with Giants defense. And
McLaurin killed you because you got a concussion. It wouldn't have mattered anyway. That Washington was horrible. It didn't matter.
Right. But the only thing that I was going back and forth was that Cordell Patterson choice. And like, I liked him. He was fine. He did okay. But that's the only thing that, like, as I go through my lineups, because I always want to go through my lineups and say, all right, well, what would I have absolutely changed had I had a second chance? And that's it. That's the only.
I would have X'd out Crowder for my player.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And also I wouldn't have had no Renfro had I known that he was going to be 14 and not 20 or 22%.
Right. Yeah. Those are the kind of like things that you need to think through when you're assessing lineups. Don't look at, because like if I was a results-based player, if I was like a bad DFS player and I looked at my lineups and I was like, oh, hey, this one has 5 snowflakes and a 0. Like, I'm terrible. It's like that doesn't matter at all. Like, look at the lineup and try to decide if you would have changed anything when building it without thinking about the results. Because when you look at the results, you can look at the top lineup this week. What was the lineup that won this week, by the way?
Let me see if I could find it. We'd had trouble. This is the because they load stuff in this throughout the mornings.
Yeah. Usually it's loaded, but sometimes it's not.
No, I can't see it.
Okay. Well, anyway, if you look at the winning lineups, like you can't really learn so much from the winning lineups. But if you can look at your own lineups and decide, okay, well, looking at the ownerships from all these different sharper players, they were over here, they were under here, they liked this spot, they liked this game. I was on the same things as they were. Good. That's great. Maybe there's some minute details that need to change. Maybe you need to switch up the way that you were building your lineups. Maybe you should have included more high upside. Maybe you should have paid down here, blah, blah, blah. But the macro view of the slate and understanding that you were on the right spots and things just didn't work out for you, you got to remember that, like, we've had 14 slates of NFL.
Right. It's 2 weeks of baseball.
2 weeks of baseball. You know what happens in 2 weeks? There was a 2-week stretch 2 years ago where Giancarlo Stanton hit a home run in every game.
Right. There's also a stretch of 2 weeks where Stan has struck out 3 times in every game.
Exactly. So, like, if you're judging, it's kind of like, it's why I tell people, like, NFL it's such a brutal sport to be consistently profitable in if you only play GPPs. If you play cash, I think that you, like, across every sport, like, you give yourself such a better floor. But in GPPs, if you're assessing how good you are at NFL based off how you do in one season, that's the wrong way to do it. You can't do that. It takes years.
I understand one full season of MLB, which in MLB you have no problem saying I'm stacking this team, that team. They were shut out,
and you just
move on to the next, and just move on to the next slate because it's the next day. So in MLB, in a given season, you get what? You get April, May, June, July, August, September. You get like 6 full months. There's 30 days calendar month. You not including night slates or anything. You're probably going to be playing 180 slates if you played every day.
Yeah.
Right.
And even if you suck at bankroll management, you still probably played 90.
Right. So let's say 180. So if you played 180 slates in MLB, that's one full MLB season. A full NFL season is like 20 slates. If you count like Thanksgiving, the first playoff slate, so 20. So one MLB season is like 9 NFL seasons. And you could go an entire MLB season in GPP and be negative on the season as a good player. This past MLB season in GPP, I lost money. And this is me coming, and it's primarily because I had like 18 top 20 finishes and like 1 second and a lot of steak knives.
There was that 3-week stretch where you had like 3 fourth places and a second place, and it's just
right,
like...
and just steak knives, because the payout structures are so ridiculous.
Yeah.
So over 180 slates, I'm down in MLB. So that's 9 years of NFL. I mean, like, and that's, you could be a good player. Mm-hmm. And go nine years in NFL and have a negative ROI.
Yeah.
Like that's how small one season in NFL is. Now, obviously, if you're playing cash games, if you play 20 slates and you just play double ups, right? So you're just counting like wins and losses. So obviously head to head, you could still win some. If you're playing cash games and you play 20 slates and you're 3-17, you could kind of reassess that you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Like cash games are much more binary. GPPs, you're aiming for the top. So like you're going to lose 95% of the time anyway. So like, when do you realize your expected value? Who knows? Hopefully it's before I go broke, right? Like that's what it is. But in cash games, if over 20 slates, you're 8-12, that doesn't mean you're bad. Right. Anytime, and your good player is 12-8, right? Like if you go 12 out of 20 weeks, you're profiting. If you go 13 out of 20 weeks, that's great. That's what, 65%. That's elite.
And the difference between a 13-7 person and a 7-13 person might be an aggregate of 25 points.
Right. That's it.
Yeah, 25 points might separate you between being profitable and not profitable for an NFL season. It's wild. People don't understand it. People don't think about it. And I put a lot of blame on like screenshot culture and stuff like that for our industry, where people are like, oh yeah, look at these cool screenshots. Like we have screenshots every week, and it's like, yeah, you do. And you're casting a wide net, so like you'll probably catch a couple of them. But
if you go into my Blenders Game Theory channel, which if you're a premium member, you could be a part of. This is where I hang out, answer questions, just like this show.
Mhm.
But like one guy's like, just want to tell you thank you. This is the most I ever understood DFS. I finished 4th in that 4 p.m. single entry behind me, where I just played my cash lineup in the afternoon. Almost did very well. Went on to win a small field tournament in NHL last night. Gracefully appreciate the masterclass and all the hours of YouTube. Like, I could point this out and go, look, someone won, right? I didn't. But like, if you have like, we have like, how many people? We got over 100 people in this channel. I guarantee you someone won a lot of money, right? I mean, there's some, like when we say that there's like play whoever you want, it's like I went with constructions that had running backs, chalkier running backs, and more contrarian wide receivers. But you could have made similar EV lineups by doing the complete op. Like there's thousands, tens of thousands of lineups that are similar expected value. Just a matter of finding them and then choosing what. I had to choose 18 of them, right? Someone else is choosing 150 of them, right? So it's like you're looking at 2 lineups. There are 66. I choose this one. You choose that one. I put up 88 points. You win the Millie Maker. That's the disparity between what the results could be between 2 lineups that have a similar expected value on just one given slate.
I have a really cool theory for you here, Benner. So I've been thinking about the DFS industry and individual companies as separate DFS players and their subscribers as separate lineups within their portfolio.
Right.
And I've been thinking about it a little bit deeper, and the companies that have a bunch of different employees that have different takes on the slate and say, these are the different guys. So now you're spreading out your player pool amongst your lineups that are your subscribers. So the more people that you have diversifying your portfolio across your portfolio of lineups of subscribers, the better of a chance that you have of one of those subscribers doing well.
Right. They get the screenshot.
Yeah.
Right. You have a great shot at getting a screenshot, right?
That's how I think about it.
Well, yeah, but which is the main reason on Twitter that I really, I got 2 people thanking me yesterday. I didn't retweet it or anything like. I mean, but it's not me. I didn't do anything. I mean, I just don't like giving out the impression that's like, oh, if you just listen to me, it's like, no, if you listen to me, you will get better as a DFS player.
Yeah.
On what slate that you win or whatever, I have no clue.
Yeah.
Right. You'll just start to build better lineups, and over time, you'll end up binking at some point.
Yep.
If you do these things, if you get the Theory of DFS Masterclass, which you can pick up at theoryofdfs.com, just stick to the concepts, play well, play for the contest that you're in, and just build good lineups. And understand that my 150 lineups, if I build 150, could have a similar expected value to your 150 and look completely different, right? And still look completely different. They still have 2v2s and 4v4s and everything in. And it's just a matter of, it's now a race on who realizes the expected value on this slate, and then the next slate, and then the slate after that. So that's what we talk about in the Discord channel. So feel free to join. Next group coaching call is tomorrow night. So if you want to join RotoGrinders Premium, click on the link in the description. Get $10 off your first month of RotoGrinders Premium. Single sport combo, it doesn't matter. As long as you have any package for RotoGrinders, you get into this channel in our Discord, where you could ask, just same as we see here on the pregame show. Ask whatever you want. There are discussions. People post their Excel spreadsheets of certain functions. Like John Martin was talking about the Google Chrome extension table capture to capture all of your lineups in a table and putting it into a workbook in Excel. So I know, James, you know everything about Excel.
I do.
Right. So we talk about that in there. And we'll be having a group coaching call over Zoom, non-recorded, not posted, where you can jump on and basically get private coaching. Of course, you're in front of a group. It's like, it's like AA, right? Hey, right. My name is John, and I play whoever I want. And then you say, what your issues are and anything you need clarified, and then everyone's there and whatever. But it's not like everyone talking at once. It's one at a time. So join that. The next one is tomorrow night at 8 p.m. And James, people could get your Rashad Petty projections at
PaterDFS.com. That was the weird one this week. We didn't talk about like what the weird one was, but that
has to be the weird one.
Yeah, that was the weird one. But yeah, PaterDFS.com. You can find me on Pater_DFS on Twitter if you don't already follow me. I've been streaming more over on the Twitch channel. So Twitch TV /multicam_PD. I think that's right. If I'm wrong, then I'll tweet it out later. But I've been trying to stream more. So if you like hearing my voice, I have a wonderful voice. I know that Blender agrees with me. If you like that, then you can catch me over on the Twitch channel. I'm going to be streaming today, going over the slate as well later on. So yeah.
People hate my voice.
I don't know why.
I don't know. I mean, people say I have an annoying voice. Well, at least the people that want to post comments on YouTube. Or
right. Yeah. Well, it's always the cynics. I think you have a fine voice. I think that people don't understand the difference between an annoying voice and somebody who talks a lot. Because you talk a lot, but you don't have an annoying voice.
But maybe I talk a lot and I'm annoying.
Well, that would be tragic. I wouldn't do the show if you talked a lot and you had an annoying voice.
I don't know what my voice sounds. My voice sounds like my voice.
Right. Yeah. I've always thought that was a weird thing. I mean, I understand like there are people that they have their preferences or whatever, but it's like, how are you going to be annoyed about somebody's voice?
I think I have a unique voice, though.
That's fair. I do think that you have a unique voice. Yeah, I can say that.
You kind of sound like a lot of people. Like it's like if I heard you on a podcast, I'd be like, it's just some guy. And then me, it's like I think there are a couple of people in the DFS industry where like you hear their voice, you know exactly who they are.
Well, and some of them are just based off of hearing it so much. Like, you know, Adam Levitan's voice when you hear it, just because like he's been on every podcast and he's had a podcast for like since he was born. So you know his voice, like you know your voice because you have a lot of media and you have a unique voice.
You know, Laufey's, but no, to me, Laufey is the most.
Is he the most unique?
He's absolutely the most. Only because if you heard him for the first time, you'd think he's a 63-year-old man. Right, with that has, you know, that's been smoking for 40 years.
And unfortunately, he's not.
And right.
Yeah.
If you look at me, right? People look at me and go, yeah. People still don't know what my age is. People like, I look like the type of person that I could be 34, I could be 67, and you wouldn't know.
You are Benjamin Button.
Am I?
Know.
People get shocked in both regards. I say I'm 42. They go, oh, you look young for 42. And then I say I'm 42, and some people are like, oh, I thought you were 20 years older. Like, really? I look 60? You really think I look 60?
There are times when you have looked 60. I will admit that.
There are plenty of times I felt 60.
I feel 60 most days. So
right. I'm a 42-year-old that feels mentally like I do when I was 24.
Yeah.
But physically like I'm 74.
Just avoid walking and you're fine.
I'm avoid getting out of bed. Okie doke. So on your way out the door, hit that thumbs up button, thumbs. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. We got Grinders live later today. Got crunch time for premium members. I'll be back on Thursday. Remember, I'm not playing NBA DFS until NFL is over. So no show Tuesday and Wednesday, but I will be back Thursday to answer your DFS strategy questions, as always, on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.